Well guys, it seems like this temporary ceasefire doesn't go well for the Russian army. They start to withdraw their forces from the Pokrovsk direction. I'm speaking about first of all the Udachna village, and their Ukrainian army is very successful with its counteroffensive. Russian army was under the great threat of being encircled, and partially Russian army was trapped there because the only supply road in this area was under Ukrainian fire. Constant fire. Then Putin announced this fake ceasefire. Definitely Russians tried to send more reinforcements to this area. They tried to demine the minefields, and in general they tried to save this flank, but it seems like they're completely losing it. As for update, let's go to yesterday, and it is today. Yesterday and today, here it was the very fast Ukrainian strike, so those two fields are now being liberated. Only 2 of the 3 lines are still under the Russian control. If Ukraine is successful there, our guys would just cut this flank for Russia, and yes, there is the probability for Ukrainian army to move ahead to this very important supply road. Because you know, Russia after all has to keep defense in many of the areas, so not just this western flank is the big trouble for Russia. No, Ukraine advances from the north, from the east as well, towards Pyshana, and not long time ago Ukraine was successful in Shevchenko direction, so it becomes the disaster for the Russian army to go and attack Pokrovsk. It is basically not possible. It basically means that with all of the mighty force Russian army was capable to accumulate for the spring campaign, they're just unable to achieve their result. Yes, they attack from multiple of the directions, sometimes with huge forces, especially using motorcycles, but yeah, mainly their attacks fail for them. And the Ukrainian army somehow was capable to organize the defense using FPV drones mostly and surveillance drones. Yeah, I'm not telling that Russia is completely not successful. For example, in Zaporizhia direction they moved ahead just a little bit, but compared to the forces they use and waste for those movements, the advancement is barely visible. If Ukraine had those kind of the resources as Russia has, Ukraine would be victorious a long time ago. That is how stupid the Russian command really is, and I continue to hear lots of the complaints also coming from the Russian military bloggers. Their main complaints are still poor communication, poor supplies, and kind of the ancient philosophy of the Russian commanders. And the Russian army, well, it operates good with Lancet drones and with Shahed drones, but other than that, even with FPV they have some turn limits. Yes, they use the cable drones to attack Ukrainian positions, it was their invention. However, they're not producing those kind of the drones massively, and the massive production for them goes for the old ancient FPV drones which were designed 2 years ago, and they've already lost their effectiveness, so you have to renew drones all the time. Software, hardware for them to be less visible and less vulnerable to the electronic warfare. That is Ukraine does. So Ukraine actually mastered that. Unlike Russia, which is evolving, yes, they have FPV drones, but it is not that fast compared to Ukraine. Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go. Well, Russia also restarted to use their Wunderwaffe. Those are the aviation gliding bombs. Mostly they use those in the Chasiv Yar towards direction and Pokrovsk. They try to save this front line, but I guess it's already too late for them. But after all, they managed to get the ground in Dnipro and Nerhia. So before Ukraine attack from this area, let me show you. So it was the Ukrainian counterattack, and in the next few days, by using this so-called ceasefire, Russia gathered enough forces for the counterattack and they took the ground back. Well, actually both of the sides tried to use this ceasefire in their favor. Definitely there was slowdown of the heavy fights. They were happening, yes, in just some of the areas, because it's impossible to control this ceasefire really without previous negotiations. Nevertheless, the intensity dropped. It means just one thing: if Russia wants to stop this war, it may do it. It could be achieved at any moment without extra demands from Russia, without their, claims for Ukraine to give up its territory. Russia may just stop shooting, and it would be enough for people not to suffer in Ukraine, and also Russian soldiers would not suffer in those crazy mid-attacks. But no, Putin restarted new attacks with a new power. Guys, this is happening in Odessa. By the time I'm recording this video, Russia launched a huge strike on some of the facilities there, probably civilian facilities as usual. Russia actually put many of their ships in the active duty today from the Sevastopol, so they used the Black Sea to strike Ukrainian infrastructure, probably even port infrastructure. So what's about Black Sea ceasefire? What's about the peace deal with Russia? Here you have the result and real answer from Putin. Zelensky asked to extend the ceasefire for 30 more days, but there was no response from Putin, no any comments from Kremlin, no one says anything. Putin just restarted the war once again. The last night they also used some of the Shahid drones to hit capital city of Ukraine, Kiev. Well, the general commander of Ukrainian army Starsky reported about the intensive fights not far away from the Kursk Oblast, but on Ukrainian territory of Sumy region. So it means that Russia wants to go to Sumy with their army. Actually, they already went there. For now, not with the major forces, but they have many of the assault attempts. Their goal is Sumy, so not just Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Luhansk and Crimea. They want to occupy more of Ukrainian regions. That is why they're so active in Kharkiv and in Sumy. So that bullshit that Davydov says about 5 regions of Ukraine is just a bullshit, as you see. And yeah, as usual, I have some of the videos which I will share on my Telegram channel. Once again, Russia goes forward with some of their armored vehicles and Ukraine stops everything of that. Yeah, sometimes Russia is capable to take a couple of the fields under control, but it is happening kind of rarely. And China mercenary again, he was lucky to survive and get to the Ukrainian captivity. Ukraine even teaches him some of the Ukrainian language. But what he told, well, I cannot show you it here because the words are kind of bad towards the heritage of the communist China. So it's the third POV, and totally there are many actually of China people fighting for the Russian side, more than 100 for sure. Kind of the strange airplane was spotted today with call sign "Welcome" in Lviv airport. The average altitude was 10,000 feet, which is kind of low, and people start to tell that it is the Saab airplane that Sweden probably sent to Ukraine. Well, maybe it is like that, maybe not. I don't have the real confirmation, like the photos of the airplane in Ukrainian airport somewhere or flying in Ukrainian airspace. So for now, I would tell that those are just probable rumors. But the aviation activity was definitely unusual, and those airplanes, they're crucially needed for Ukrainian Air Force because they expand the range of the F-16's radars. Well, actually part of the Ukrainian F-16s, because not all of them are modified with the special radars which are able to connect with these AVAX airplanes. So yeah, Ukraine needs to modernize its F-16s, and for that we need the support and maintenance from our allies. Sweden actually promised 2 of those surveillance airplanes, which could be in a way game changer for Ukraine. Or it is better to say for the use of F-16s, because they might operate further away from the front lines. And as you know, Ukraine not long time ago lost 1 more F-16, so we have 2 of the losses. One is friendly fire, the other one was shot down by the Russian air defense missile. And yeah, not a good news, but I have to share it with you guys, and probably this one is correct. So there's the HIMARS system which Ukraine lost, and Russia shows this image. But here with this resolution, it is definitely hard to judge. Maybe it is HIMARS, but Kaboom definitely shows that there was the rocket fuel inside. Usually it happens after air defense system kabooms, but probably HIMARS also has that rocket fuel in the shells. Yeah, definitely hard to judge on this image. And after the story with Archer, then Russia shows Archer, but kaboom of Bogdana artillery system, because I posted it as the kaboom of Archer, but later on I had to debug it myself. Well, here, guys, I'm 100% not sure whether it was HIMARS or not. And by the way, my friends, if you want to support the job that I do here on YouTube, you are very welcome to my Patreon. I'll share the link for my Patreon page right in the video description just below. Thank you so much for maintaining my motivation, especially when I have troubles with monetization. You really help me a lot. Well, Putin gave the short conference today in Moscow where he stated and confirmed that Russia hits the civilian infrastructure. He also confirmed that it was Russia which hit Sumy city. He mentioned that there were some of the soldiers, however, no, they were just civilian casualties, but he continued to say no, 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 those were soldiers, which is absolute bullshit. And nevertheless, he said that they're looking to evaluate the strikes on civilian infrastructure, but it is under the question because Ukraine is using civilian infrastructure to hide their forces. And first of all, military who did some of the massacres in Kursk Oblast, in Belgorod, and Nazi battalions. So yeah, he basically legitimized the strikes on Ukrainian civilians. Well, at the same time, Putin confirmed that intensity of the fights dropped for the Easter holidays. Because of this ceasefire, definitely Ukraine conducted less attacks, he says. But yes, he restarted everything once again in an attempt to gain more ground of Ukraine. But as you saw, Ukrainian armed forces were successful in the Pokrovsk direction, which is, I consider, the most important direction from all of the front lines, because Pokrovsk itself is very, very important. And later Putin added that there is no doubt that Russia will be victorious in this war. Yeah. I would say that based on their offensive operations, they're mostly bogged down on the front lines and they're really in desperate. And actually that was the reason for Putin to announce the ceasefire. You know, Donald Trump before said that he's thinking to abandon those negotiations. But Putin wants Donald Trump to negotiate with him, to negotiate with Russia. He wants two of those processes to go simultaneously. First one, the war against Ukraine, and the second one, negotiations with United States of America. Because that is how Putin thinks he might propel his own narratives, his own ideas, maybe influence Trump even more via Vitkov. So yeah, they want to fool those commerce guys out there in Washington, because Trump and his dream team is actually in lack of the competence. So those KGB guys, they want to use those in their favor, that's it. But it seems like Putin's plan for now failed, and I haven't heard any sort of the comments about ceasefire from Donald Trump. No true social posts, no comments in the press, really nothing. I thought he would praise Putin for that, but it seems like this operation was not coordinated with Donald Trump. After all, it was improvisation of Putin himself, which showed that Putin is not interested in peace after all, but he wants to figure out how he might finish this war without hurting his economy really hard, as well as his army, because they have tremendous losses. Once again, Donald Trump, yes, he's basically the generator of the random phrases with this huge caps lock text. Hopefully Russia and Ukraine will make a deal this week. Both will then start to do big business with the United States of America, which is thriving, and make a fortune. Well, delusional statements after the delusional statements. First of all, why he's so sure that Russia and Ukraine will make a deal this week? I don't see it in a close perspective coming. Russia continued to produce weapons, Russia continued to hire their military personnel. Ukraine also boosts the military production, and we're gonna go to those awesome news, really awesome, a little later. So besides, they're not oriented on some sort of the temporary ceasefire or something like that. No, this war will just continue. But why is he so sure? Donald Trump just lives in his own imaginary world, that's it. That is what we know from the experience of how Donald Trump behaves with everything, with economy, and yeah, that's crazy. The next delusional here is the big business which both Ukraine and Russia could do with the United States of America. It is complete nonsense, it's hoax, it's nothing. Because after all, Ukraine and Russia do not trade a lot with the United States of America. It's geographically and historically hard to trade with the United States of America with the products which are being produced in Russia and Ukraine. Russia sells its oil and gas mostly to the Asian countries, also to Europe, but not to the United States of America, just randomly, occasionally, because USA has its own oil. And also both Ukraine and Russia, they're agriculture countries, so they sell also what they harvest. But the United States has everything of that already, so Ukraine and Russia sell that stuff to the third countries. And what Russia purchases from United States of America? iPhones, but they're coming mostly from China. American cars, no, our people do not like those. Maybe Ford, just a little, but mostly German, Korean and Japan cars are popular in Russia and Ukraine. But now China sells lots of their cars to Russia, for example, because Russians do not have any other choice under the sanctions. So yeah, we are not trading a lot with the United States of America, and you cannot change it. You cannot force Ukraine and Russia to trade more. And if you somehow, I don't know, under the genius of Donald Trump can do it, somehow, let's imagine, and both of the countries potentially could make a fortune. Russia a lot, like trillions of dollars are coming. It is not the intention of the Russian elite for Russia to be prosperous. Putin is out there in Russia, he controls everyone, and he uses poverty in Russia as his main tool, for example, to hire soldiers to the army by paying millions of rubles. Also, if your society is poor and uneducated, you can control them quite easily. Putin is probably the richest person out there in the world, but Donald Trump thinks that he can bribe or buy Putin's opinion or stopping the war by investing something to the Russian economy. And yes, in general, as I say to you, this person is just delusional, generating some random text with caps lock typing. He's completely out of reality. I would say even Putin is closer to reality than Donald Trump. Alright, there was the big article of the Wall Street Journal saying that the United States of America want to recognize Crimean Peninsula as the Russian territory, and they will ask Ukraine about it, like for Ukraine also to recognize it as the Russian one on Wednesday during the meeting in London. Well, what can I comment on that? Am I surprised? No, because there is lots of the trash coming in the White House with their decisions. It is just one more. And what does it mean for Ukraine? Really nothing. United States may recognize Canada as the United States of America, or Greenland too, but it will not make them the United States of America, no. So with Crimea it's kind of similar. Yes, Russia occupied Crimea, they established their control, but they had stolen that peninsula from Ukraine, and no matter what they do with it, it is still not theirs. It is like with other stolen things. If a thief steals something, it doesn't mean that the thing belongs to him. And yes, it may actually open the Pandora box for Russia, first of all, because they would understand if they annex more territories of Ukraine, someday United States of America may recognize that, at least USA. Ukraine, not. I do not expect that Ukraine will follow the same move under any sort of the circumstances and under any sort of the Ukrainian government. But Donald Trump, well, he is after all a king of America, so he might do whatever he wants. We basically don't care. The only thing here is the support of Ukraine, the military support, first of all. And yeah, Donald Trump actually might abandon Ukraine, and there are some of the signs of it coming from the White House. We'll see how it goes. I think that this week will show everything. The news about Pope Francis, you know that he passed away already from major media sources, so I will not concentrate on that topic. Alright, Ukraine was successful in capturing some of the Russian soldiers in the Kursk direction, so despite Russian offensive operation, or you might call it counteroffensive, on their territory in Kursk, Ukraine is capable to capture lots of the Russian troops, and it is happening not for the first time, no. There were at least 5 or even 6 of the videos, I don't actually remember how many, but every time I tell and show you the success of the Ukrainian counter-assault operations. So the planning for the Russian strikes, their assaults is very, very poor, and the soldiers say that they're in lack of supplies, basic water, food and everything. They're forced to go straight forward to the minefields, to Ukrainian positions without any sort of the backup, protection, communication. Yeah, after all, it's the second army in the world. So Russia lost the reputation of this mighty force before the full-scale war against Ukraine. Russian army was definitely considered the biggest one on the continent, on Eurasia. But now there is the great doubt about it, and if there is the temporary ceasefire implemented somehow between Ukraine and Russia, Russia may start the war once again, because with this loss of the reputation, Other players around would not consider Russia as the main military mighty power or economy power. Russia is in lack of the economy power because its GDP is not more than Portugal and Spain combined, but yeah, Russia still has some of the nuclear weaponry, they have military production. Every day they hire those stupid guys who live in the poverty somewhere in the Russian villages far behind Moscow, and they produce more missiles, more drones, more tanks, BMPs, still unable to cover their losses, but they produce. Just look at this tired face of Kellogg. He says that the administration of Donald Trump is tired of the war in Ukraine. He definitely used the term tired. What can I say? Ukrainians are fighting against Russia for more than 3 years already. And here the new administration, which was just elected, and they're tired of Ukraine. Tired of what? It is definitely the case that you wake up and you already tired. And this is coming from Keith Kellogg, who is one of the most sane persons out there in the Trump's team, but he is just ignored by Donald Trump. He's not communicating with the Russians. He's, I would say, no one there. I think his role is to minimize this pressure on Europe and Ukraine, saying that everything will be okay, everything, no worries, everything will be fine, but we see that it's not fine. Alright, there is the info that White House is looking to replace Pete Hegseth as defense minister because there is one more scandal involving, again, Signal Messenger. It seems like there was the other secret group created by Pete where he added his wife, his lawyer, and some other persons. He also used his private phone for messaging instead of the service phone. So this guy is just buffoon, he's not competent. Yeah, entire Donald Trump's team is not competent, including Donald Trump. Well, he's just outstandingly stupid and everyone sees that. Well, the White House speaker already said that no, this information is fake, we're not looking to replace Pete, but the information like that, which is shared by many of the sources already, well, it is not happening just on empty rumors. No, I think Donald Trump is not okay with Pete. As well as he's not okay with Elon Musk, by the way. I have to apply censorship elsewhere, so I don't know whether it's good for YouTube, whether it's not good for YouTube. Recently, this platform is very strict to me, so guys, thank you so much for your kind support on Patreon. Nevertheless, we have some awesome news coming from Europe. They're interested to boost Ukrainian military support. Yes, they want to invest in Ukrainian military production rather than to supply their own weaponry to Ukraine. Well, actually, those two ways will be done simultaneously. Ukraine also obtained some of the licenses to produce European weaponry, plus the manufacturers like Rheinmetall and others, they're building their facilities in Ukraine as well, so they will produce the weaponry on territory of Ukraine. Plus, the great news about the ammunition production is coming from the United Kingdom. They will make more artillery shells to end reliance on the United States. They use some sort of the new technology and they want to ramp up the production by several of the times. Well, I need to dig this topic more. They call it RDX explosives production, which is crucial for defense, and it is using new automatic techniques, so maybe in a way it is very profitable. I'm gonna update you on that probably in my next video. So we have good news coming for our allies, and I also think for Ukraine. Yes, about the Easter celebration, Fox News showed the ceremony live from Moscow and from Kiev, from the churches of Ukraine and the Church of Moscow, and they put Kiev, Russia. But the main live stream with the big screen was coming from Moscow. Kiev was just the smaller one, as well as Vatican, by the way. So absolutely understandable preference of the Fox News. For them, Russia is this Christian country with some of the values, but the Russian Orthodox Church has nothing to do with Christianity or God. They praise the Russian war crimes elsewhere, the Russian military actions. They bless the Russian weaponry, including the mass destruction weapons, by the way. It is not the church, it is a bloody circus, and it's not about religion. I'm speaking just about this particular pro-Moscow church. And they tell that Putin is Christian, but Putin was the member of the Communist Party, the atheist party. By the time of the Soviet Union, religion was somewhere there behind. They called the religion the poison for people, and actually communists, they slaughtered lots of the Christians and lots of the people who served in the Orthodox churches. And the leader of the Russian church is also connected with KGB. But Fox News, they don't care. They share this bullshit, live streaming it to American viewers. Americans, don't be fooled by this neo-Nazi media, I would call it. And guys, let me ask you to press your huge like to this video and also subscribe for the channel, because if you do those two things, my video will be boosted by the gods of the YouTube algorithms. So thank you so much for that, and obviously if you can, support me on Patreon, because you keep me running. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.